there, thanks for tuning in to a look at new transition-related resources for families from Project 10, Transition Education Network. My name is Danny Roberts-Dom, and I'm the co-director for Project 10, and I have my amazing colleague with me, Amanda Maggio, and who's going to take us through our website. And so today, you'll learn about some resources that Project 10 has developed that can support you and your young people during the secondary transition process. All right, Amanda, take us on a tour to our website.
All right, so you're going to go to, let me share my screen. You are going to go to our website, which is www.project10.info. And all of this is the main homepage, and there's lots of other buckets with great resources and great information. But a lot of our publications that we'll go through today will be found under the training and publications. And then you will scroll down to the publications page. And this is where all of our great resources will be found. Do you want me to share any specific ones, Danny?
Let me unmute. No, you know what? I'll go ahead and do that. So pretty much anything that I talked to you about today is right there on our website under trainings and publications. So you can see there's a lot. And today we've hand selected 10, the top 10 list for you and your families. All right, so I'll start sharing again. Okay, so number 10 is the graduation options chart, and number 9 is the transition services checklist. So I'm going to actually take you to those products, or we call them products, but they're resources. And Amanda, can you see my page, the 24 graduate? Okay. Cool. So this first one is the Florida graduation options. On the first page, it's a 2-pager. You can see the 24 credit standard diploma option that's just available to all students. And that definitely includes students with disabilities. Now, there are 2 other 24 credit standard diploma options that are available only to students with disabilities. The first one is in the middle section, and you can go through and see what all of the credit requirements are. They're broken down by content area. You can see the electives and other things here. And then there's also the 24 credit standard diploma option via access courses. And so that's only available to students who have a significant cognitive disability and who are taking access courses and the alternate assessment. And so there's some special requirements there. So you'll want to definitely check in with your son or daughter's school to know more about that. Also, there are some 18 credit options. There's the Excel, the academically challenging curriculum to enhance learning option. Again, available to all students, including students with disabilities. And then there's a newer pathway, the college or career and technical education, CTE graduation pathway. That has a minimum of 18 credits. Although you could do more. And again, that's available to all students, including students with disabilities. And it's broken down and structured just like the 24, where you can see the content area, credits, electives, and other requirements. The transition services checklist is documents all of the transition services requirements that go on an individual educational plan or IEP. And so transition age is 14 to 21 or 22. And we have broken it down by age. So you can see over in the right column, age 14, 15, all the way through 19 to through 21. And it talks about the different aspects of the transition IEP that should be included. And there's a lot of information there, but it's really a good handout to have in preparation for IEP meetings. And even as early as the middle school grades, this is really useful kind of to know what's coming up and how the traditional IEP in younger grades will change as students get into middle and into high school. So that's a 2-pager for you. And then going back, lost my place, that's okay. Might have lost my mouse. That's all right. All righty. Go right here. And counting down, number 8 is career and technical education, CTE, our course substitutions, technical assistance brief. And then number 7 is sort of related, but really a great one for families, the enhancing educational experiences in middle, high school, and post-secondary ed related to CTE. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. And then also number 6, getting ready for educational opportunities after high school. And so, let's see. Oh, good. I got my other mouse back. Okay, so the technical assistance brief on CTE course substitution. So that might sound a little technical for a family, a parent, that kind of thing, but it's great information. You can even bring this to the school, to teachers, to your case manager, your son or daughter's case manager, and talk about, hey, could we do some course substitution so my young person can get some great CTE credits and technical experience while also meeting those graduation requirements. So that's what a course substitution is. And so we have all the Florida legislation that, sort of says that this can happen, who's eligible, how to do them, some examples. It goes through all the 5 W's, the who, what, when, where, why, and then also how can they do that. So this might be a little bit technical in nature, but it's a good information to have and to bring to your school, to the IEP meeting, to any kind of planning meeting for courses that your young person will be taking. This is like such a fun document to look at, and it's good stuff for families too. So this is the CTE piece about, how to really use those CTE courses and experiences in middle, high school, and planning for post-secondary ed. So it takes you through a series of 7 questions, just starting with the basic. What is CTE? What is career and technical education? It brings you through the career clusters and specific CTE program examples. And then goes into like the advantages of CTE, the course substitutions, which we've already talked about, the CTE. We have a whole document on that with course substitutions, what accommodations and modifications are available, why it's a valuable option when planning for courses of study, and differences between CTE at the high school level and post-secondary level. They're two very different things, and the accommodations that may be available are varied as well. And then there's all kinds of resources to follow up on. Another thing, kind of the right-hand side is really fun because it provides some other tips, like, what can CTE, help a student do? How can it be a graduation pathway? Common myths about CTE. I love those because you hear a lot of these, and if you haven't looked at what a career and technical ed, is these days, it's very different than, 10 years ago or even when we were in high school. And then an overview of certificates and degrees. So all kinds of good stuff there for you. Now this document, I'm kind of jumping ahead, is about educational opportunities for after high school, but planning for them starts early. It starts in middle school. The expectations are set in elementary school, but it starts in middle school and high school. And this document walks through, again, a series of questions to help sort of guide this planning, and then has some great tips on the right side of the document. So this is another one. It's about 8 pages long, has some really cool data that might be relevant to you. And so, just starting out with, have you and your student, your young person, thought about post-secondary education? And what does that term even mean? That could mean college, it could mean career and technical education, it could mean university, it could mean state college or community college. It could mean just another form of training. So here are some of the options. Some of the other considerations: where will a student live? What accommodations can they have in the post-secondary setting? What's available socially? Getting involved in the community. The second question is a really important one. The courses that a student takes in middle and high school really impacts the post-school opportunities available to young people. And so this really lays out the differences between whether you're going to a university, which is through the Florida college or university system, whether your student would be going to a community college or a state college, which is through the Florida college system, or if they're going to a career and tech program. So there's all kinds of post-secondary career and tech ed programs that are different than those opportunities available in high school. And then inclusive post-secondary ed programs for people with intellectual disabilities. And those are at CTE and tech colleges, they're at community and state colleges, and they're also at universities. So it talks about, what you need to know in terms of admission, the grade point average requirements, the testing requirements, and the course of study a student would need to take to be eligible for each of these different types of post-secondary options. A lot of these are great just considerations about things that a young person needs to have to be equipped to be successful after they walk across that stage. So an understanding of their disability and being able to talk about it and advocate. Developing effective communication and social skills. Again, that goes sort of into self-determination, but knowing appropriate ways to get your needs met. Basic computer skills and other assistive technology. So even though people have limitations, knowing what kinds of computer-based, assistive technology can help is huge. The student learns skills to assist in organized planning and prioritizing. So, that really gets to executive functioning. And we have a whole list of tips for students and parents right here on the right side related to developing executive functioning skills. And then accepting responsibility. And here we have the difference between in high school and all of K-12 is through the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. All those supports and accommodations and modifications are provided. And schools do a pretty great job of providing those. But once a student has graduated, those supports through IDEA end. And so really being able to navigate the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Rehabilitation Act Section 504 is huge. So we have just a breakdown of some of those differences that you need to be aware of. And then of course, some resources by topic, by the question. Maybe. So we're halfway through 543. We have the middle school transition trail map. The future starts now, training on middle school preparation, and then benchmarks for middle school transition planning. So all things, whoops, taking you too far, all things middle school are coming right up. So this is one of our newer publications. We really heard from families and from the Family Network on Disabilities and different parent organizations that we work with quite often that we know that best practice is to start transition planning as early as possible, but we don't have resources specific to middle school. Well, now we do. We have this super handy dandy 12-pager middle school transition trail map for families. It's really fun to, you could share this with your son or daughter or family member. There's 10 trail markers, and then there's a student example in each of the grades from 5th grade to 8th grade. So really practical hands-on information. Each trail marker is sort of guides you through the middle school. So it starts at preparing from that transition from elementary to middle, all the way through to preparing from that transition in 8th grade middle school to high school. So it kind of walks you through that whole span. So depending on where you are in your transition journey, you can pick and choose what you want to look at, but it's all got great information. Things like the responsibilities of elementary and middle school personnel, and then those responsibilities that are on families and students during these years. There's some fun little tips like the checklist for things to do in elementary preparing for middle, all kinds of cool graphics. There's parent tips on developing, this is on social emotional competence. And that's a big, piece of maturing and getting older. And so we've got some parent tips there. Again, going back to those course requirement and options, knowing the courses that can really set a student up for success early on, that's huge. So there's a whole section on middle grades courses, IEP preparation and information, and how those changes when an IEP becomes a transition IEP, some of those changes and preparing for them. You can always go back to that transition services checklist, of course. Early warning system, so making sure that students are mastering the ABCs, that they have good attendance, that's A. So they have good behavior, they're not getting referred to the office, they know the expectations, they're doing good. And then course performance, how are they doing in those courses, and making sure to keep up on that. You can see there's a visual timeline. There's just so much information. There's also information about getting connected with agencies that can help support the transition, particularly vocational rehabilitation, also known as VR. And now VR can provide what are called pre-employment transition services, pre-ETS. And those are things like job exploration, work readiness training, work-based learning experiences, self-advocacy training and peer mentoring, and then post-secondary ed counseling. So those are in addition to what is already provided in middle school. And, you know, students might be really focused and working hard on all kinds of academic requirements and pieces in middle school. Well, Voc Rehab can provide, you know, things in the evenings and weekends or online to help with that employment and career awareness piece early on. So students know what's out there career-wise and where they want to go. Again, talking about CTE and how there's opportunities even at the middle school level. And then of course, transitioning from middle to high school and just preparing for college, career, and life early on. There is also a training on this, and that's available to anybody from families to school district personnel. So it walks through this road trail map, and it is available and free. Everything that Project 10 provides is free and available to anyone in Florida. We're here to help. Along the same lines are the benchmarks for middle school transition planning. So this is another 12-page document that walks through this. So we took the predictors of post-school outcomes. Lots of amazing researchers in secondary transition have done very long-term detailed research studies to see what is it about K-12 education that helps prepare students to be college, career, life ready, you know, good quality of life, that kind of thing. So those are called predictors of post-school outcomes. So there's 20 here. I think there might be one additional one that was just discovered, but things like they have, you know, a really targeted course of study. The parents have high expectations. They have paid work experiences. They know how to set goals and things like that. So it takes you through those 20 predictors. And here, sort of the layout for most of this document is in the left column has the benchmarks for middle grade students and their families to work towards achieving. The little icons indicate how the benchmark activities are related to those post-school outcome predictors, which are on the first 2 pages. And then there's discussion starters for students and families. So things like ask, how do you know or understand your strengths, interests, disability, needs, things like that. And then in the right column are all kinds of resources. So it could be a page on our website, it could be a page on the Florida Department of Ed website, a toolbox for self-determination, all kinds of resources related to that. So that is available for you. And then we're down to our 2 final resources, the Secondary Transition Roadmap for Families and the Transition Assessment Chart. So the Secondary Transition Roadmap for Families has been around for a while, but it just got updated. And it's a pretty comprehensive update. So this is the latest and greatest. And again, you see the mile markers. It's kind of like the middle school trail map, but middle schoolers can't drive. So we thought about this in terms of, you know, high school drivers, you know, just kind of that focus. So we did it mile markers. Also, our regional transition reps across Florida, they pre-pandemic, they drove a lot. They go out and they help district personnel. They go to agency fairs, interagency collaboration, things like that. So they were on the road a lot. So mile markers was on their mind. So anyway, this is it's good for middle school too, but mostly geared towards like high school for families. This is a great thing to sort of read and go over as you're preparing for your transition IEP. It has all kinds of information here. It starts off with the additional components of a transition IEP versus a typical IEP. So you could start there. It breaks down the responsibilities that the student has. You know, as they get older, they have to sort of take on more responsibility, those family responsibilities, and then what you can expect from the school district or the school. And then also agencies. And this is like an emerging area where, you know, preparing for secondary transition has it's so multifaceted, and you might be working with a post-secondary program or college, university. You might be working with Voc Rehab or other agencies to do some support needs, things around independent living, community participation. So a lot more people and agencies become part of that transition planning as students get older. So those are some examples of who could be involved, depending on the student's needs. Talks about pre-employment transition services, which I've already mentioned, but definitely getting connected to Voc Rehab is a huge deal. And then walking you through those Florida high school diploma options, graduation options. So just like you had the chart, that's where we started. This is sort of like a narrative of that. The chart is also in here, but it walks you through all the different options. There's diploma designations. There's the International Baccalaureate IB diploma program, the ACE program, all kinds of things. And then the merit and scholar diploma designations. If you want to know more about that, you can go to mile marker 8. Avoiding dropout, as students get older, they might get senioritis, but just making sure students are staying engaged, keeping your young person on track is huge. So there's a little section on that. Here are those diploma options or graduation options that we already went over. So we have that as a standalone document and also within the roadmap. And then if you're a student that wants to defer the receipt of their standard diploma, that is an option for some students with disabilities. It is an IEP team decision. There are a lot of requirements and things that need to be met. And so this whole section, mile marker 9, talks about, what needs to happen to be eligible to defer receipt of standard diploma so that students can continue to receive services between the ages of 19 through 22. And so there's different types of deferral programs and extended transition programs, and it talks about those here with the different program types. So there's the accelerated college credit programs, collegiate high school programs, industry certification courses leading to college credit, to earn a scholar designation, or to do those structured work study internships and pre-apprenticeships. And that's kind of one of the most typical areas. You might see a reason for a deferment and engaging in a deferral or extended transition program. Things like going to a project search program, working on community-based vocational education, school-based enterprise and community-based instruction. And this is a great conversation starter to see what's available in your school district in terms of extended transition opportunities. And then we end with what's next. So walking across the stage is just, that's an amazing accomplishment, but making sure students know about what are those post-school options out there. So, talking about the disability or accessibility services at colleges and universities, CTE centers, state university system, the inclusive post-secondary programs we talked about for people with intellectual disabilities, and then breaks down some of those areas which you might recognize from a former document that we talked about, just things that students need to know to help them in the post-secondary world, life after high school. And then these are a lot of the agency connections. I talked earlier about engaging with agencies during the transition years, and this gives a good breakdown of some of the most common areas for agencies and resources and their websites here. And then just some transition related resources for families. This is where we end. Okay, let me go back to my PowerPoint. Oh, I forgot our number 1, transition assessments chart. Okay, so you might be thinking a transition assessment, like I'm a parent or I'm a family member. What do I know about assessments? Well, as you're preparing for a transition IEP, students can be assessed on transition related items, and they're things that you wouldn't really think of as academic. They're more like career interest, inventory, social skills, things like that. And so there are formal and informal assessments, and this document is just a great resource and list. It's only a 2-pager of formal and informal assessments. They are hyperlinked, so if you click on it, it'll take you right to that assessment, and it tells you whether the resource is free or for purchase. And we're not suggesting that families need to be purchasing any assessments, but just knowing what's available out there so that you can advocate within your school with case managers and things to ensure students are engaging in transition assessments to help them know what they want to do and how to be prepared for life after high school. So a lot of times we see on transition IEPs that teachers or case managers did an interview with the student, but it can go much more beyond, there's a lot of transition assessments out there. So engaging in this list, and there's a lot for free, to sort of know what are my son or daughter's career interests. I'll tell you, with my brothers and sisters years ago, I used to do career interest inventories with them at the kitchen table because they didn't know what they wanted to do. The 18, 19, 20 years old didn't have a direction. And so I would, I knew about a lot of these resources, and I just bring out my laptop and do it right there with them to help them know what's out there. And so you can certainly do that, but you can also bring this to a teacher or case manager and say, hey, like, here's some great resources. I'd love for my student to have some of these amazing transition assessments to help inform what we're planning for life after high school. Alrighty, so that was one. I just also want to mention, let me go back to we have a lot of products in the works, but two that you might be most excited about is one on self-determination. So that's increasing those self-advocacy skills, communication skills, goal setting, self-knowledge. That's sort of all wrapped up into self-determination, and a lot of those influence positive positive post-school outcomes. So we have made a mini guide on how to implement self-determination throughout, the different areas of school and academics, but also at home. So that's for all students in self-determination. The next one is about guardianship. So talks about when your child becomes an adult and turns 18, the age of majority, there's the transfer of rights, and there are a lot of decisions that can have major implications for the rest of your life. So it talks about, age of majority, transfer of rights, and decision-making options. And so that should be out fairly soon as well. So keep an eye out for those. They'll be on our publications page, as Amanda showed you. Yeah, I think that's it for me.
Yeah, thank you guys all for tuning in today. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations, please feel free to email us. Our contact information will be on the next slide. We also have an evaluation that we would love if you could take the time to complete and just give us your feedback on today's presentation. And here you'll see our presenter contact information. You have Danny Roberts-Dom's information and Amanda Maggio on the right. And if you have any questions, once again, please feel free to email us and let us know. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks so much.